Hey there YouTube, it's Kurt here, and today we're going to go over the top 3 easiest decks to play in the 2019 group of formats. Alright, so let's jump straight into it here. At number 3, I have Zombies. Alright, so Zombies aren't really a very technical deck. If you figure out how to summon Vampire Sucker, that's the really most complex thing you kind of have to do. There are other plays you can do with like the Shiranui build, you can go into certain Synchro monsters, but for the most part, your goal is to get Zombie World on the field, and a combination of a Zombie World and get Drogshul the Spirit King. If you get these two on the field, you're going to look pretty good. Drogshul just gets two ridiculous effects that, they're ridiculously good. They can get a Banish and a Monster Negate. And also, they turn everything in, Zombie World turns everything into zombies. So, a lot of opponents can't really play that. They can't play with their deck if all the monsters are chained to zombies. That's one difficult thing some people have a hard time working around. Alright, so, yeah, other than that, if you put in Rivalry of Warlords in your deck, that's going to make everything also super, super easy. And the deck's not really hard. Sometimes you just floodgate out your opponent and you win the game. I'm not necessarily encouraging anyone to play easy decks. The thing is, if you play easy decks, you're going to have a hard time against really, really good players, because when you play easy decks, you don't really learn the finer mechanics of the game. So these are good decks to learn on, but I don't recommend staying on decks that are easy to play. Alright, so number 2. At the number 2 deck, we have Trickstar. Trickstar, also pretty low on the mechanic spectrum. Basically, a lot of Trickstar decks want to burn. The most complicated thing that people want to learn with this is basically the Droll Lock combo. And although I find the Lock combo a little bit degenerate, it can be really effective. And it's honestly not as scummy as some other aspects of the game. It at least requires a lot of luck to actually set that up. Things like Danger Guard Dragon don't really require that much luck to set up a really degenerate board, so the Droll Lock combo, I feel like a lot of people just ignore it. So as far as the mechanics, normally you just summon Candina, and then search for a Lycoris. And once you get Lycoris, then you just kind of switch those on and off the field, and eventually just overtake your opponent with burn damage, or just making the appropriate play with Reincarnation. If you Reincarnation at the right time to banish an important piece that your opponent has, that can often win you the game. So Trickstar, pretty easy deck to maneuver, and it's seen quite a lot of play for some time now. So, Trickstar, if you want to learn the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's some link plays you can eventually get into. Trickstar is a pretty good option for you. Alright, at number 1, we're going to have the easiest deck I think of. That's going to be the easiest deck for a lot of formats, and I honestly wish Konami would just kind of indirectly hit it, because it's one of the only decks that can play Card of Demise. And honestly, Card of Demise, such a ridiculous card. You can draw up to 3 cards in draw power. But yeah, True Dracos, they just rely on 2 things. They basically rely on draw power and floodgating. And it's one of the most non-interactive decks you will probably run into in Yu-Gi-Oh! It wants to go first. If it goes second, there's a little bit of interaction there, because when you put your Draco spells and traps on the field, and then you tribute summon over them, they do get some pops. So sometimes they can go second, but the ultimate goal of True Draco players is to basically get into floodgates so their opponent isn't allowed to play the game. So it's probably going to be the easiest deck to pilot for a long time coming. It really takes advantage of players that don't really know how to side deck or have the combo moves to really take advantage of clearing the back row. It's one of the decks that probably is a good reason why Harpy's Feather Duster probably should come back to at least 1 copy. But yeah, there are ways to deal with it, obviously. It's one of the only decks to where you can actually use Evenly Matched, and it will pretty much 9 times out of 10 be really effective against Dracos, because Dracos aren't going to. Most of them don't main like Solemn Judgment. I've seen some main Dark Bribe, but Dark Bribe is such a niche card. A lot of times, like, I'm doing the thing where I actually side deck 3 MST, and I side deck 3 MST, 3 Pancratops, and 2 Twin Twisters just to deal with those potential back row decks. And that's, yeah, I side that in a couple of different decks. But yeah, these are by far I think by far the easiest decks that you will run into. But the bonus side, if you're an experienced player, you should have the experience to work around the kind of cheap tricks that these decks have to offer, for the most part. So that's all I got, guys. But these decks, I think they do hold some kind of promise, and in the hands of a skilled player, they can be pretty deadly. All right, so good luck to you guys. Peace.